No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it tomorrow.
All right, tomorrow. But
too many
I am
serious
so
things.
angry over this tragedy, how the system failed this Ainsley family. I know you're angry too.
Yeah, we're going to be all over it tonight, Sean. Thanks so much.
Right, have a good show.
And good evening from Washington. This is the Ingraham Angle. Let's get right to our top story tonight. A stunning verdict out of San Francisco. A 5 times deported illegal alien with 7 previous felony convictions was found, believe it or not guilty of murdering 32-year-old Kate Steinle on July 1st, 2015. Now, the jury did find Jose Inez Garcia Zarate guilty on 1 count, being a felon in possession of a firearm. The not guilty verdicts on the homicide charges came despite the fact that Mr. Garcia Zarate both admitted to shooting Ms. Steinle and to coming to San Francisco to take advantage of his sanctuary city policies. Now, remember, Garcia Zarate had been in the custody of San Francisco authorities until April of 2015, but then they released him without notifying ICE, of course, blatantly ignoring a detainer request. Despite this fact, his attorney had the gall tonight to say that the case had nothing to do with illegal immigration.
I believe today is a vindication for the rights of immigrants, that today we have to reflect, all of us, on how we talked about this case in the beginning and how this swarm of reflection and reaction on the base of what I believe to be the racial dynamics of this case. Nothing about Mr. Garcia Zarate's ethnicity, nothing about his immigration status, nothing about the fact that he is born in Mexico had any relevance as to what happened on July 1st, 2015.
Oh, my God. I can't even believe those words were said by that man. It is breathtaking on almost every level and almost wrong on every level. Joining us now for reaction to try this, sort all this out, is Michael Wilds, who's an immigration attorney in New York City, and in San Francisco, Harmeet Dillon, an attorney, a Republican strategist. She focuses on a lot of civil rights cases. She's a litigator. Harmeet, let's start with you. When this came across my phone tonight, I actually got choked up. I got choked up for the Steinle family and for every American family who's been brutalized at the hands of criminals who should have never been in this country in the first place. Your take.
Absolutely, Laura. I mean, as a citizen of San Francisco, I was tremendously disappointed, not to say ashamed, of my city and that jury today and the verdict that they gave. You heard the political rhetoric coming out of the attorney there, Matt Gonzalez's mouth, and despicably conflating this criminal illegal alien who has several times been deported from this country with law-abiding immigrants like myself and other citizens of this city, and as if we have no rights at all. And this is really an example of the city of San Francisco's rolling out the red carpet for illegal aliens, and this is the logical net result of that.
Michael, I want to go to you on this. He said this verdict has a lot of relevance. It vindicates the rights, essentially, of the undocumented. So is the message today, if you're an undocumented immigrant, you are deported 5 times, you can come into the United States, shoot someone, and get off on all murder charges? Is that part of the message today? Because that's what happened.
No, sadly, Laura, I join you and everybody this evening for the sad loss for the Steinle family and what looks like justice not being served. I happen to be a former mayor and a former federal prosecutor myself, and there are multiple truths and theaters that happen here. This, sadly, although a terrible event, is an isolated event and a pure result of a poor prosecution by a state court prosecutor who did not succeed in bringing home a guilty verdict. The prosecution didn't succeed in it, just like immigration didn't succeed in stopping this man here. But for ICE's poor presence on the border or poor ability to do this, this young lady would have been alive. And today we cannot scapegoat immigrants or immigration or refer to these individuals all by one big sieve as people that would cause Americans harm. Let's not forget, unless you're an American Indian, we all hail from immigrants.
Yeah, Michael, don't spare me. Well, hold on, Harmeet. Michael,
This
I'm
is not
sure
the
you're a very,
platform,
I'm
Laura,
sure
to fight
you're
this
a
out.
very talented lawyer. I was one in my day. But for you to kind of spout out the cliches about we're a nation of immigrants, we have a dead 31-year-old girl right here,
And
we had an
fault
illegal
is that?
immigrant.
Whose
Hold
fault
on, who
is that?
San Francisco refused to hold on an immigration detainer in sheer defiance of federal law which is supreme over state law when it comes to matters of immigration.
Laura,
That is an
well,
outrage to all Americans. They did not hold him. They should have held him. When he was removed from the country, you bet he shouldn't have come into this country.
So, Laura,
but for people like you
that.
who stand up for these criminals, when Americans are being brutalized and immigrants who are legally here are being brutalized, frankly makes me sick to my stomach tonight.
Laura, I'd like to
Harmeet, go,
address-
and then Michael, you respond.
Yeah,
Let Harmeet
Laura,
respond, then you go. I'm in no mood for the cliches tonight. I got to tell you that.
So Garcia Zarate pulled the trigger, but let's be clear, blood is on the hands of the politicians in San Francisco who have made the sanctuary city policy the law and kept all of us unsafe for a long time, and also on the hands of the Obama administration, which did not enforce our borders for 8 years. And one of the reasons that President Trump was elected into office was his promises to seal that border and keep us safe. And frankly, now our entire state of California, thanks to our governor signing the bill earlier this summer, is a sanctuary state. So every citizen in California can look forward to this type of situation occurring if we don't protect our borders. It's really past time for us to do that in this state.
Michael, you can answer.
Thank you for giving me a moment. And Laura, I resent the insinuation that I'm a cliche kind of lawyer. I was a federal prosecutor, and I share the loss of this family. The bottom line here is ICE has laws on the books and should have done a better job at stopping this. And until they stop this properly, we can't engage in a political diatribe in the courts. The courts forensically found that he had caused an accident. It was not something he intended on doing. He should never have been here, and this young lady would have been alive had ICE stopped her and stopped him. And you want to know something? There are so many ways, whether it's the building of a proper wall or the enforcement of the laws on the books, that we can stop the federal felons and criminals from re-entering. Mind you, this man can now be prosecuted federally for re-entering the United States after he serves the time for the illegal weapons charge. But let's not scapegoat immigration or make this father think that but for all the people that have accents in this country, his daughter would have been alive.
First of all, who's saying that except you tonight?
No, you just said cliche. You accused me.
No, your cliche. Your cliche is trying to rope in. You're trying to conflate legal immigration and immigration.
No, I'm trying to address the bifurcation of our system.
Tedious
Laura,
to
let
everyone.
me speak, please.
I'm
trying to conflate the bifurcation.
No, because you said that no, you can't when I'm speaking. Actually, that's the way the show goes. So when you keep saying you're scapegoating immigrants, no, we're not. What we're saying is he should not have been here. You bet he should not have been here.
He should not have been here.
But don't take the blame, all of the blame, and put it just on the feds. When the feds had a detainer out on him, and San Francisco did not honor it.
So let me finish my sentence. The feds have a detainer on him, and it's up to the feds to use their due process, yes, that is not a dirty word, to go out and find this gentleman and have him deported.
They release
if they're
people.
Expecting the local police who are overwhelmed with their own jobs to then hand somebody over like this, that's a violation of due process.
All over again. And frankly, they're being victimized in hearing these types of arguments.
So let's zigzag.
These arguments are
Laura,
ridiculous.
what you're saying is let's zigzag through the legal system and forget due process and just pull this guy by his ear and have him out because he may kill somebody. The next people
sounds good to most Americans right now.
I understand that, but the next people that will be victim will be other Americans when you start pulling away constitutional rights.
Laura, this is a joke. What happened in San Francisco is the sheriff deliberately let this guy out. They let this guy out like they let people out every single day on the streets of San Francisco. He was hanging out for 2.5 months waiting, a ticking time bomb for this crime to occur. He will now serve under our California laws maybe 2 or 3 years for this crime. And then guess what? Catch and release again. Thank you, California. We are not safe here.
We gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go. We're way over, guys.
The sanctuary city is a symptom of a broken system, and we need to fix it.
It's a symptom of everything. Michael, you made some good points. I gotta say, you made some good points in the show. But this is not about legal immigration. This is about illegal immigration, period. Both of you, thank you. And a programming note, Kellyanne Conway is going to be on Fox and Friends tomorrow morning. She'll be the first White House person to react to the Steinle verdict, so make sure to watch that. A lot more when we come back. Did NBC executives really, we're supposed to believe, had no idea about Matt Lauer's predatory predilections? We'll have a report coming up. Now, how in the world did NBC brass not know about Matt Lauer's gross behavior over all those years? Well, maybe they didn't want to know. CNN's Jeff Zucker, Lauer's boss for years at the Today Show, is claiming absolute ignorance today.
I was at NBC for 25 years, for 25 years of my career. You know, no one ever brought to me or to my knowledge, there was never a complaint about Matt. There was never a suggestion of that kind of deviant, predatory behavior, not even a whisper of it.
Not even a whisper, please. People across the industry are saying they knew about his reputation for years. And don't forget, NBC is the network that held back that Juanita Broderick interview about Bill Clinton before they ultimately were forced to run it, and spiked Ronan Farrow's blockbuster Harvey Weinstein investigation. So with Matt Lauer, NBC initially claimed that there was just one accuser, and we told you last night there are actually many more. Now, today, Fox News is reporting as many as 8 women may have accused Lauer of sexual harassment. Joining me now to make sense of all this, and it's still rapidly developing tonight, is Fox News contributor, New York Times bestselling author Tammy Bruce, along with Sam Braverman, who's a criminal defense attorney and a political analyst. Sam, let's start with you. Look, I used to go on the Today Show, fairly regularly, including back in the 90s, mid to late 90s when Jeff Zucker was there. I knew him a little bit. He was very close to Lauer, and Lauer was always perfectly nice to me, but they were really good pals. And the reporting today is that this was widely known in the network, that he had a reputation and people were afraid to speak out because of his power and the fact that he was the franchise of the network. What do you say?
Well, I'm sure that always has a role to play in all these sort of things. Being a powerful guy who brings in $100 million to a television station gives you a certain amount of latitude. And I have no doubt that there are people there who knew this sort of thing was going on. Whether or not the people at the high end had properly insulated themselves from this so that they can, quote unquote, have some deniability, hard to say. But it seems unlikely to me that nobody knew about this. In fact, the Times and Variety have been working on it for weeks. The idea that it just came out this Monday is nonsense. Of course they haven't known about it.
Yeah, Tammy, this kind of plausible deniability, Zucker's a big liberal. He's over there at CNN, and he's wagging his finger all the time at, when Fox was going through its stuff, and Lauer was interviewing O'Reilly, about a month ago or so, and something about this whole story just seems a little hard to believe. Everyone's so shocked, just like with the Weinstein thing. Everyone's so shocked and stunned about the so-called behavior.
Right. Now, look, what's interesting here is that Andy Lack, remember, was brought back to NBC to save NBC from the Brian Williams debacle. So this is a man who's brought in to try to fix things. He's a fixer. Now, this would be somewhat believable. It's more believable with Zucker, I suppose, than it is with Lack because of the close personal relationship that Andy Lack has with Matt Lauer. So even if you try to insulate yourself in the workplace, but at that level, I would think when you're managing that kind of money and the gem of your network, you want to know everything. You don't want to be surprised. And that becomes the issue for Mr. Lack and certainly for Mr. Zucker, who also prides himself on actually being, a manager. He's a captain of a ship. You need to know these things. And so this is where it becomes problematic. I think, Laura, what we've seen, of course, are these men have been able to do this for decades. And suddenly it seems to them overnight that the rule has changed. And I think they've underestimated the nature of what was occurring. And so they thought that they could protect themselves. And you saw that with the spiking of the Ronan Farrow dynamic. And you saw it with just some of the denial that's already led up to this, especially with Variety working, I think, actually months on this, the New York Times as well. And then the firing, by the way, a lot of people don't realize this. It wasn't just a booker who was fired earlier. It was a vice president of NBC who was Matt Lauer's closest producer. who was fired earlier for inappropriate behavior with women. So a lot of people thought that this was going to start the unraveling, and now we're seeing them try to still scramble and cover themselves. And clearly, I don't think they're thinking right at this point about the franchise.
Sam, what do they do here? I mean, there was rumors that Megyn Kelly would want to step in, and her show is is what it is. It's less of a news show, less of a serious show. That she would step in, and it seems like the knives were out for her today. And some reporting, the people weren't thinking she was like throwing gasoline on the fire of Matt Lauer. What are your thoughts there?
Wouldn't you be happy to see Anderson Cooper take over the job there? Move one CNN over to NBC. You guys can be very happy about that. I think the answer is that you have to do as much damage control as you can, and you just behead as many people as you think will eventually bring attention elsewhere and give you some time to scramble internally. So if they cut off a couple people here and move them on, that gives them a little bit of latitude. But to suggest that this is only a liberal network problem, I do think probably misses the beat. I think there's a whole lot of schadenfreude going on out there for the Lauer-O'Reilly interview of a couple months ago. It's reminiscent of, I don't know, something like in the Yalta. Everybody sitting around complaining about the weather.
I go back to the Ted Kennedy, Chris Dodd in the 80s when I first came to Washington at the Brasserie restaurant. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in this town that people kind of laughed at for a long time in Washington.
Since Rome.
But it's been going on a long time.
Let me just add, too, none of this, you guys, as we know, none of this would be able to survive without leadership supporting and protecting people.
Protecting their brand. They had to protect
the brand.
Yeah.
Especially with the behavior of Matt Lauer, which clearly there was gossip. People knew he had to be protected by some.
All right, guys, we got to go. Thank you so much. And when we return, utter hysteria from the left and mainstream media over President Trump's mental state. Today's angle, next. Who's really crazy, President Trump or the media? That's the focus of tonight's angle. There's been a steady drumbeat from a bipartisan cabal in the media and a few in politics who are claiming that the commander-in-chief is unfit to serve, not in his right mind, insane, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. A New York Times bestselling book by a group of psychiatrists suggests that the president is psychologically unstable. And this narrative has been gaining momentum for some months now. And I'd say for a glimpse of true psychological instability, here's MSNBC's Joe Scarborough from Morning Joe, along with a sampling of other hysterics.
You have somebody inside the White House that the New York Daily News says is mentally unfit, that people close to him say is mentally unfit, that people close to him during the campaign told me had early stages of dementia.
Think about the prospect that the President of the United States is not fully in his right mind. I mean, let's just say it. Is not fully in touch with reality, and is worsening.
Something is unleashed with him lately. I don't know what is causing it. I don't know how to describe it.
You see a difference in the past, what, days, weeks?
I think the last couple of days' tweets have been
unhinged,
markedly accelerated in terms of seeming a little unmoored.
We are concerned that the President of the United States is so unstable, is so volatile, has a decision-making process that is so quixotic that he might order a nuclear weapons strike that is wildly out of step with U.S. national security interests.
Quixotic, big word. Now, consider the people questioning the president's mental health. Like, for instance, where did Scarborough get his psych degree from? Talk about delusional. And Scarborough's not the only member of the media suffering from this severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. But I've got to be thinking about this. I think there might be a method to their madness. You see, what's happening is they're deflecting, I think, some attention from all the real basket cases, their colleagues in the newsrooms with real psychological issues. They're the ones you've been reading about, with careers going down in flames over habitual sexual abuse and harassment. And yeah, it's kind of a lot easier to talk about a crazy president who tweets than about your pals down the hall, or maybe the management upstairs who supposedly knew nothing about the predatory behavior of their best friend. Now, you know what the left, I think, ultimately is most afraid of here? Not that Trump is going to fail, but that he's actually going to succeed. So they use the word madman to undermine his credibility while setting up this narrative to oust him from office, delegitimize the election, pull it back. Now, last night I asked someone who knows a little bit about the president, Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and I asked him his appraisal of Trump's mental state.
Those accusations are absolutely outrageous. I mean, I speak to the president on a virtually daily basis, and I'm involved with him all the time on all these issues. And that kind of accusation is totally baseless and outrageous. I think those kind of accusations are completely off base and irresponsible. Let's argue over the issues.
But the left and a smattering of defiant never-Trumpers, they don't want to talk about the issues. And the crazy talk allows them to divert attention from all the good the president has done already for the United States. Let's tick off a few. A booming economy. GDP just revised up to 3.3%. Stock market, we all know, hit an all-time high today of 24,000. Christmas retail sales up already this season. They slashed red tape to boost investor confidence, unleashing small businesses across the United States. He's rolled back regulations that strangle business growth, restoring common sense conservatism, trying to drain the swamp, having some success at moribund bureaucracies like the State Department. And he's nominating a record number of federal judges and courts across the land. And finally, returning fire in the one-sided trade war with China. It almost gets no coverage. It's that $250 billion worth of deals he brought back after that trip to Asia. He's finally launching a real anti-dumping case against Chinese aluminum manufacturers. And now, get this, now he's working with our European allies to oppose China at the WTO. Came out just hours ago. They're opposing market economy status for China. That's huge news. But where's all the media reporting and obsessing on all that? Top Trump aide Stephen Miller just told the Washington Examiner if media coverage was fair, unbiased, down the middle, there'd be 100 stories about the unstoppable momentum and energy of the Oval Office. That's the same thing they did, in a way, to my old boss, Ronald Reagan. They branded him a doddering old actor while trying to sabotage his agenda. And remember, these are the same people who got the election wrong. They said the stock market would tank once Trump got elected. And now they're desperately trying to revive their own reputations by defaming the president. And they hope they get what they want in the end, removing him from office. That's what all the crazy talk about. And frankly, I think that's crazy. And that's the angle. Joining us now to discuss what's really going on, Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist, and Garland Nixon, a radio talk show host. Garland, let's start with you. I mean, that's quite a montage of people, both in politics and the media, declaring Donald Trump basically either has dementia or is mentally unsound.
Well, you know, I think they may be out of line making a scientific diagnosis, but I don't think it's unreasonable when the president tweets out something that could literally start World War III one day, and the next day he's in a Twitter war with a 19-year-old college basketball player, to say that that's out of line. So the president is acting in ways that I think we would have to question whether or not the president of the United States should consider a reasonable way to act, to lead the nation, and to be the leader of the free world.
So you're saying basically if he didn't tweet, we would have a booming stock market. You know, he's dealing with China in a way that I haven't seen any president, really any president in my lifetime deal with China, which is really common sense, pragmatic. It's not partisan, it's pragmatic. All this stuff's happening on the economic front. He's working with our allies in Europe. So if he didn't tweet, he wouldn't be mentally unsound?
Well, I'm not talking about the tweets. I'm talking about what's in the tweets. He's suggesting, the president is suggesting that the only way to fix the problem with North Korea, which would be prevent war, is to start World War III with North Korea and China.
Did he say that? That's not what he said. Molly, go ahead.
Right, and I think, you know, there's certainly room to have problems with his tweets. I mean, just this week alone, there have been many problems with his tweets. No. There's his rhetoric, but then there's also just the reality. And when you look at the reality of his foreign policy, he's actually got some of the more restrained foreign policy that we've seen going back to someone like Eisenhower. You know, it's funny to hear people talk about like worrying about getting into wars. Well, that's what the last three administrations have done, or the last several administrations have done, is get us into wars needlessly. He does have a different foreign policy posture. He does want to convey his seriousness with North Korea. And I think those tweets are not more directed toward North Korea so much as directed toward China and getting China to take seriously. Again, his rhetoric could use a lot of improvement, but people who are observing it need to separate that rhetoric from the reality of that presidency. And from the reality, he's actually operating as a pretty mainstream president with a lot of accomplishments to back him up.
Well, see, I think what we're talking about here is that he doesn't understand apparently he doesn't understand the gravity of that rhetoric. We could be talking about, everybody remembers the shot heard around the world. Well, we don't want the tweet heard around the world. And what a lot of people are saying is you don't seem to grasp that when you make these kinds of boisterous, tweets about North Korea, one person just slips on the trigger, and now all of a sudden,
Probably not that simple.
No, military historian Victor Davis Hanson says there is no evidence in history of an errant word causing a war. And we have had a lot of rhetoric from the previous administrations warning North Korea about destruction if they continued with their nuclear capabilities. Nothing has stopped them. Absolutely nothing. Everything about our posture for the last several decades has done nothing to keep them from the path that they're on.
You know what I think is crazy? This is what I think is crazy, and it's happened under both Republican and Democrat administrations. I think leaving the border open and very, very unsecured was crazy. I think letting China become such a dominant economic and military power, I think that was crazy. I think taking Mubarak out was crazy. I think doubling down and doubling down and doubling down again in these Middle East conflicts that are quagmires that we can't get out of. I think there's a lot of craziness to go around, and maybe people are really polished and they give speeches that maybe don't wander off so much as sometimes Trump can. But the policies have been crazy. They've hollowed out our middle class. That is craziness that had real-world effects. So, and I'm talking Bush, Obama, Clinton, crazy town to let China get to where China is today. They all did it. All of them. Go ahead.
It's almost like we're in the exact inverse of the Obama presidency, where everything was very polished and considered. The public statements were always very presentable. And then in the background, you're having this absolutely destructive policies with Iran, all these destabilization, thinking even about what we did in Libya, convincing Muammar to get rid of his weapons and then destabilizing that regime. That's the kind of stuff that affects North Korea and makes North Korea think that they need to go nuclear. Maybe these polished
I think giving 20% of our uranium capacity to a country that is one of our adversaries, or at least a company connected to Putin, I think that's crazy. Well, I mean, that's really crazy to me. Maybe I'm just the one who's totally nuts here, but I think that's crazy.
Well, you're never going to get me to promote neocon war policies, that's for sure. So I've always, if you're
But they want him out of office. They want him out of office. They want to remove him from office using the 25th Amendment. Don't you agree with that?
I think there are people who are starting to move in that direction, but I think it's not unreasonable to question. I mean, recently, now we already know the president had copped to the Billy Bush tapes, and recently now he seems to have forgotten that.
Reportedly, reportedly.
Well, he called it locker room talk, which he actually won doing that. He won. He did that. He got away with it. Yeah. But now he seems to have forgotten, and now he's saying, "Oh, maybe."
Well, I'll be considered crazy if I blow through another hard break. It's great having both of you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. And the career of the longest-serving member of the House may be coming to an abrupt end now that even Pelosi has decided Congressman Conyers has become too toxic. But the lawmaker's lawyer had an in-your-face response. Wait till you hear what he told her next. Welcome back. As we've been reporting, Democratic Congressman John Conyers facing multiple accusations of sexual harassment, and now even Nancy Pelosi is calling for his resignation. It gets really bad. However, Conyers isn't going quietly. His attorney said, quote, Pelosi did not elect the congressman, and she sure as hell will not pressure him to leave. He claimed a double standard, noting that Democrats are not calling on Senator Al Franken to resign, maybe a race element there, but a new bill would abolish the office that hides congressional offenders and uses taxpayer money to hush up their indiscretions. We first told you about this Office of Compliance, and last night I asked Majority Leader Mitch McConnell about the unmasking of names. Would he be in favor of it, of alleged abusers? And he said this.
Laura, I think my attitude about that is I want to wait and see what the women of the Senate recommend on that and the other issues we're talking about.
So it could be possible that we'll never learn?
I'm going to wait and see what the women of the Senate recommend on that issue.
Why just the women of the Senate? I mean, isn't everybody?
I think they're in a very good position to take the lead. Some men are involved as well on both sides.
And tonight we have some new clarity on the identity of the alleged harassers on Capitol Hill whose settlements were paid from the slush fund. A whopping $100,000 went to two staffers of disgraced Democrat Congressman Eric Massa, who was forced to resign. Joining me now for reaction to all this, Congressman Ron DeSantis, Republican from Florida. He's the co-sponsor of the Congressional Accountability and Hush Fund Elimination Act. I can't believe there's actually an act with hush fund in the title. Congressman DeSantis, take it away. I mean, Mitch McConnell would not commit to unmasking the names there, as far as I could tell, at least.
Well, think about it, Laura. You have a situation where members of Congress can commit misconduct. The taxpayers will pay for their misconduct, and then it's all kept secret. So what kind of behavior are you trying to promote? And here's the thing about the offenders. This is taxpayer dollars. You as a taxpayer have a right to know how your money is being spent. So my bill would unveil the claims that were brought, the amount, and then the perpetrator. And the American public deserves to have that information. There's no way that that should be secret.
Are there any other funds that we should know about on Capitol Hill that, if you've come across?
So
that
we're actually, my staff, we're researching to get all of them, because what happens is they'll do one permanent appropriation. So just a pot of money that exists outside the budget process. So people like, did you know this was there? I was like, no, I don't know it's there, because it's not in the budget. It's not in our appropriations
bills. How is that even
bills.
allowed?
It shouldn't be allowed. Mueller's funding is actually, DOJ claims, is outside. I think that's a bad interpretation. I don't think he's entitled to that.
Yeah.
But that's what they're relying on, one of these
So he
funds.
can spend basically as much money as he wants, but without any real oversight.
I mean, justice could tell him to stop, but they've not shown any inclination of doing that.
So he can hire as many people as he wants.
He's got 16 prosecutors.
That all?
Did they have
what have they found so far?
Did they have that for the O.J. Simpson murder case or Oklahoma City or any of those other cases? No.
Kate Steinle's accuser basically got off nothing. Maybe a couple of years, possession of a firearm as a felon. An illegal immigrant deported 5 times, sanctuary state, sanctuary city policies. Your take on this?
Well, the verdict obviously is a disaster, but the root cause of this is exactly what you said. It's the fact that we didn't have control over our borders, and you had a sanctuary city where he could return knowing he'd be put back on the streets. So I think Congress needs to look at this now, say we have a spending bill coming up in December. We've got to totally defund sanctuary cities in that spending bill.
I mean, I'm thinking about her family tonight, and victimized once again, their hearts broken again. I mean, there's no justice here.
Well, I mean,
no justice.
You remember Jamil Shaw and his son in California. They were releasing these illegal immigrants right back onto the street, even though they were in custody, and his son gets killed as a high school senior going to go play football. So how many more of these stories do we need to have before we actually take action?
And I'll tell you in a second what the lawyer for whatever his name is, I forgot the evil person's name, but a graceful verdict. This is what Trump tweeted. A graceful verdict in the a disgraceful verdict in the Kate Steinle case. No wonder the people of our country are so angry with illegal immigration. I think he's right about that. Again, we had the lawyer for the accused tonight. We had played a soundbite earlier where he said this vindicates basically the rights of illegal immigrants to be here in the United States and to stop demeaning immigrants, always conflating illegal immigrants with immigrants. He went on and on with this impassioned statement about how this demonstrates that we have real justice in the United States for people no matter what color their skin, making it a racial issue. And it was nothing further from the truth. The guy shouldn't have been in the country.
That's why we get the statistics from the Obama administration. How many illegal immigrants did they release who then went on to commit crimes? I don't know what percentage of that is committing crimes, but every one of those crimes you could say, had we enforced the law as written, none of those crimes would have happened. That's just the bottom line with this.
Last night, Mitch McConnell in this interview actually said that he was in favor of ending chain migration and was in favor basically of the RAISE Act, which I hadn't heard him say before. That was actually very heartening to a lot of our viewers, and it was almost a little surprising to me. He's sounding really conservative on immigration.
Yeah, I mean, McConnell obviously viewed as a quintessential establishment Republican. The Republican establishment has never embraced things like the RAISE Act or ending chain migration. So things are changing, obviously driven by the President of the United States.
So his agenda perhaps will actually be pursued in this regard.
It's a way to unite the party, because that's where our base is on these issues. Our base is not with the open borders folks.
So it looks like Corker tonight might be throwing a monkey wrench into the tax reform bill over in the Senate. Any thoughts there?
Look, every Republican runs for office saying the tax code's a disaster, we pay too much. We have a chance to do something.
He's retiring, of course.
Right. So you're not going to face the voters again, and you want to try to deep six this? What? Because you have a personal beef with the president? That's not what we're here to do. We're here to represent our constituents. The Senate needs to get this done and end the drought, the legislative drought that they've been in all year.
It would raise taxes by $350 billion more. If this goes down, what 2018 prediction?
Well, obviously. I mean, I think our base will be deflated. They'll be like, we elect you guys, and what are you doing? Yeah, no, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good for the economy either.
Horrific. Congressman DeSantis, always great to see you. Thank you so much. And up next, check this out. Black Lives Matter says it has a nasty Christmas gift for white-owned businesses. A boycott. We'll explain. Coming up. We always keep an eye on culture, and tonight it has a Christmas feel. Why is the Washington, D.C. metro system waging a war on Christmas? Plus, CNN plans to boycott the White House Christmas party. But we begin with Black Lives Matter, which seems to be dreaming of a, I don't know, communist Christmas. Joining us now is Raymond Arroyo, New York Times bestselling author and EWTN news anchor, author of the Will Wilder children's series. Raymond, let's start with this Black Lives Matter issue.
We have to?
Well, yes, we do.
Okay.
With white organizations and businesses, is it do they not like the phrase "White Christmas" or the song "White Christmas"?
No. They want to boycott all white-owned businesses as a way to stop capitalism, as a way to protest against the Trump presidency.
Because all white people like Trump?
I guess.
Even in California, where they all, like, a lot of them voted for
Well, the founder of this
Hillary?
group, one of the Black Lives Matter leaders, said something, wrote an op-ed, I think last year, in the Los Angeles Sentinel.
Here's the quote. Rather than lining the pockets of Trump and the other white supremacist capitalists, has a nice ring to it, white supremacist capitalists, donate to black-led organizations that are building new liberatory is that a word?
Liberatory structures.
Is that a word? Liberatory? I
Yes.
must have missed that one in school. Liberatory structures in our communities, wrote Melina Abdullah.
She's a professor at Cal State University.
Liberatory. I got it. Okay. I've
Look that one up. Use that later.
I've learned a new word.
Can you
tonight.
imagine if the Klan came out and said, hey, white people, only frequent white-owned businesses, they would rightly be decried as racist. This has a racist tinge to it that we don't need at the holidays. There's only one color that matters to retail this time of year.
Green.
It's not black or white, it's green. And this is a time of year when everybody comes together. And it also is really dumb because by telling black consumers, don't go to white-owned businesses, you're beating up and you're condemning and hurting the black employees at those businesses. This is bad for everybody's economics.
Retail is still, I mean, it's very big this season.
But it's booming this season.
Booming this season. It's not just Amazon. It's not just online. Retail is up. And that hurts everybody. But this is what happens is they always take it just too far.
It goes too far.
And
this is only going to hurt black businesses because what happens? Then only black people will frequent black businesses and white people frequent white businesses? Well, then more white people buying. That's a problem.
Was that what Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks was really all about?
It's terrible. Division at Christmas.
Now, there's just so much sadness in my heart because I understand that CNN won't be at tomorrow's White House Christmas party. There are a lot of media Christmas parties, I guess, or a lot of parties.
Not this year.
Only one media party.
The Trumps are only doing one.
Oh, good for them.
No pictures with the
president.
Oh,
they're not letting pictures? Oh, boo-hoo. Mr. President, change that.
I know.
Raymond really wants a picture because he wants to meet Melania. Sorry, Rebecca, I didn't mean that. No, but so CNN says they're not going.
CNN is not going.
Who cares if they're not going?
Because they feel the president is attacking the First Amendment
Fake news.
and attacking CNN.
Well, maybe they got a fake invitation then.
But you know what happened here? You have a president who, for the first time, is responding regularly to aggressive media.
Unmasking the press.
Well, and look, for good or ill, there's always that tension among the media. That's a good thing, but I think at Christmas time, can't we drop the grudges and come together and have a little eggnog at the White House and get our picture with Melania?
It'll be more fun. It'll be more fun without the CNN people.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I like some.
Well, that's more cookies.
By the way, I'm remembering a Christmas past of the Clintons. Didn't the Clintons have an interesting Christmas tree that we've forgotten
Well, we
about?
were talking about this the other day, all the criticisms of Melania's decorations. Remember the Clinton tree, Gary Aldrich's book, The Secret Service guy, who said
Do we have a picture of
there
it?
were condoms and
I can't make
sex
out
toys hanging on that tree.
Oh, that can't be true.
That's what he reported.
Condoms and sex. I don't
I'm not going to do the forensic.
That's like a Matt Lauer's Christmas tree
You
there.
never know what's back there.
Come on. What? And Obama's Christmas cards. Now we're picking on all the Christmases. We are the Grinches tonight. Now, Obama's Christmas cards, what were those, kind of a season's greeting?
They were always happy holidays. No Merry Christmas.
No Christmas.
The Trumps have been very demonstrative in their declaration. The president tonight, even in a tweet, invoked the 2,000-year-old story of Jesus Christ that everybody knows, no matter their religion. This is not going to gain him any more friends at CNN either. But
we're putting baby JC back in Christmas.
Yeah, I guess.
Wow.
So this is all happening.
Trump's gone away in the manger. This is where we are right now. So finally, Archdiocese, Catholic Archdiocese suing the Metro.
Well, they're suing Metro because every season they advertise on the sides of buses. It's a very bland ad.
Let's look at it. Let's show it the ad.
The ad just says, find the perfect gift. And it's a couple of shepherds and
Okay, yeah, we see
sheep.
it. So who's suing to stop it? Or?
Well, the diocese wants this advertised.
And they don't want it.
The Metro says it's endorsing religion. How is that endorsing religion? It's a couple of sheep. I don't understand.
Given
this.
some of the ads on the Metro, I think that's about what we need, a couple of shepherds.
Well, Merry Christmas. I hope I get my Melania picture.
Oh, Melania. Raymond wants the photo. Don't go away. We're coming back.